if you go to a modern dump, it's pretty serious business how they handle the trash, right? And so back then, I bet you, if I was Inglis trash hauling, and I wasn't, say, 4 or 5 years old in those years, if I had owned a company called Inglis Trash Hauling, I bet I could have gone to the Beaufort County Council and said, this tipping fee you're talking about charging for the dump is communism. I tell you, it's communism. I'm a taxpayer here, and they're gonna charge me for dumping in the city dump. Can you imagine anything like that? Well, go now to Beaufort County Council, and I bet you there isn't a single member of that council, no matter how conservative they might be, that would hear that argument at all. They'd say, Inglis, you're filling the dump, hauling trash here, pay for the space you take. It's a basic concept of conservatism for sure, and it also fits with a lot of progressive notions too, that hey, we're gonna have to build a new city dump when this one's filled, so let's pay as we go and get ready to build a new dump. So across the political spectrum, nobody would disagree now with the city of Gainesville having a tipping fee for trash haulers. Just that's the way it is. When you pull your trucks in, they're weighed, and you pay based on the weight of the truck, or the stuff that's in the truck, and then the city can build a new dump when this one is full. So I'm here to tell you that we think, at republican.org, that that's what this is all about, is we got a trash dump at the sky. And it's all about figuring out how to charge for the space that people have taken up there in the dump. And if you price it right, you'll get innovation, lots of it. And so that's where we come from. It's basically this idea of a solution in economics. And we think the problem is basically a problem of economics that has an environmental consequence. But before I tell you about that solution a little bit more, I should tell you a little bit how I got to this, because, it probably does sound strange. He says he's conservative and he's talking about climate change. He must be a rhino or something, or maybe he's not really conservative. Well, you see, my first 6 years in Congress, I said that climate change was nonsense. I didn't know anything about it, except that Al Gore was for it. And in as much as I represented Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina in the U.S. House, I was the end of the inquiry. Okay, pretty ignorant, but that's the way it was my first 6 years. In my defense, I did fit the district quite nicely, but then I was out of Congress 6 years after losing the Senate race in 1998, and went back to practicing commercial real estate law. Had the opportunity to run for the very same seat again in 2004. So our son, the eldest of our 5 kids, had just turned 18. Like some over here, he was in college. He came to me, he's voting for the first time, and he said to me, Dad, I'll vote for you, but you're gonna clean up your act on the environment. His 4 sisters and his mother all agreed that, that was the way it was gonna be. And so, an important constituency, you need to respond to these people. They can change the locks on the doors to your house, you need to respond to them. And so that was step 1 of a 3-step metamorphosis for me. Step 2 is going to Antarctica, the science committee, seeing the evidence in the ice core drillings. And then step 3, another science committee trip, and a spiritual awakening. Seems unlikely, right, on a godless science committee trip? Because we all know that all scientists are godless, right? Apparently not, because this Aussie climate scientist who was snorkeling with me, showing me the glories of the Great Barrier Reef, was clearly worshiping God in what he was showing me. Without any words, I knew that we shared a worldview. It was written all over his face, it was in his eyes, it was in his excitement about what he was showing me. I knew that we shared a worldview. St. Francis of Assisi is quoted as saying, preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. And so Scott Heron, the Aussie climate scientist who's now become a very dear friend, was doing just that, preaching the gospel without any words. And so later, without the snorkels in our mouths, We had an opportunity to talk, and he told me about conservation changes he was making in his life to love God and love people who come after us. So Scott rides his bike to work, does without air conditioning as much as possible in Townsville, Australia. It's a pretty hot place. Hangs the family's clothes out of the line, all to consciously love people after us, the people coming after us. So I got right inspired. I want to be like Scott, loving God and loving people. So I came home and introduced the Raise Wages Cut Carbon Act of 2009. Note to self, do not introduce carbon tax in midst of Great Recession when you represent probably the reddest district of the reddest state of the nation. It will not go well. It did not go well at all. After 12 years in Congress, I got 29% of the vote in a Republican runoff. The other guy got the other 71% of the vote. Rather spectacular faceplant in politics. You usually don't lose that badly unless you've been indicted or something. Actually, that used to be the case. I don't know, now you get indicted, you might do better. But back then, if you got indicted, you were pretty much toast. But I hadn't been indicted. I was just on the wrong side of some Tea Party orthodoxy. It wasn't just climate change, it was some other things too. I voted for President Bush's rescue of the banks. That's a mortal sin in the Tea Party religion. It cannot be forgiven. There's not grace for that. By the way, the $800 billion was all paid back with interest. I'm completely over it, but I'm just saying that it was paid back every dime with interest. And yes, we didn't have a depression. We had a terrible recession, but it was not a depression. I had Tea Party people tell me, what we need is a good depression to clean things out. And I would tell them, my parents lived through the Great Depression. I have never heard them put the adjective good in front of the word depression. People were hungry, it was serious. And so, anyway, so that was a heresy. Another heresy was voting against the troop surge in Iraq. Now here's something interesting and sort of encouraging. You might think political orthodoxies are fixed. They're actually pretty fluid. Isn't it amazing? Back then, Republicans told me, how dare you vote against our president, George W. Bush? The same people, I'm telling you, literally the same people, stand in chairs now and cheer every time Donald Trump trashes the whole effort in Iraq about once a month. Same people. So political orthodoxies actually can flip around. And so if you don't like the current setting, just wait a while. It'll come back around. And so it's like neckties, you keep them skinny, they make them wide. Anyway, so let's see, I'm here confessing all my sins. Confession is good for the soul. I wrote an op-ed favoring gay marriage. That didn't go over very well. But my most enduring heresy was just saying climate change is real and let's do something about it. Because it looked like I crossed the other side and was marching out with the Democrats. So at that point, a foundation came to me and said, Inglis, you're pretty unusual. Actual conservative, 93 American Conservative Union rating. Here, Brenau, is that an A, 93? Yeah, okay. So it's a low A, but it's still an A, right? 93, yeah. 100% Christian Coalition, 100% National Right to Life, A with the NRA, 0 with the Americans for Democratic Action, that's a liberal group, and 23 by some mistake with the AFL-CIO, the labor union. I was really hoping for a 0. I'm not sure how I got a 23. So they said, actual conservative. He says, climate change is real. Will you speak and write for the proposition? So that's what I'm doing ever since. It's now this thing called republicen.org. EN is for energy, entrepreneurship, the environment. And so I should point out too, we're thick as thieves with our friends at Citizens Climate Lobby. And full disclosure, I'm on the board of Citizens Climate Education. So we're like really our thick as thieves, because what CCL talks about is basically the solution that I'm about to describe. So that's how I got to this. Now I want to go back and talk about, can we come up together with an idea do we get the whole world in on solving this? Because that question that was on the poll that worries me some is the not sure column about whether we can solve it. Because we have two categories of folks that aren't reflected, well, that are in those numbers, but you have to do some crosstabs on them, I suppose. You have the hoaxers, and then you have the hopeless. And so somehow we've got to work on both sides of that. We've got to work on the hoaxers and help them to understand that we think it's actually solution aversion that mostly drives that. They don't think there's a solution that fits with their values, so they doubt the existence of the problem. To everybody that's convinced, that may sound irrational, but let me tell you about the plan of back surgery we've got for that problem you're having. First, we're going to take your head off. After we get your head off, we're going to work on your spine, and we're going to put your head back on. Thanks, Doc, I'm feeling a lot better. I don't have a back problem if that's your solution. And so for the people in the hoax category, they heard UN, blue helmets on, is going to come here to the US, and they're going to regulate your very breath. Oh, well, if that's your solution, I don't have a problem. Okay, so that's the hoaxer category. The hopeless category is people that really are aware that, gee, there's a problem, but how do we rise to this challenge at speed and scale? And so that's what I'd like to talk about here tonight, is speed and scale, and also show the hoax category. I'm pointing to the right on that, and on the left on the hopeless